as I said, I do want to start with Eric Kestner here. Eric's been kind enough to join the show again. Eric, thank you for being here. It's great to see you as always.
Thanks for having me, Luke. Can you hear me all right?
I can hear you good. Yep.
Great.
Can you maybe just start by giving a little update to the audience about what you've been. Oh, actually, I'm sorry. I wanted to start. Make sure to make a point. What is your Patreon, Eric? How can people help you out?
Oh, great. Thank you for mentioning that. The Patreon is patreon.com/Yellow Vest Action.
Yellow Vest Action or Actions?
Singular, Action.
Singular.
Yellow Vest
Okay.
Action. Yep.
So that's up on the screen there. Please do help Eric out if you can. For those who don't know, Eric is in DC engaging in demonstrations and trying to talk with lawmakers and networking with other organizers. And he's up to all sorts of really fantastic stuff. So now that we've got the Patreon out of the way there, can you update the audience on what you've been up to?
Well, today we were out following the convoy, the People's Convoy, about a couple hundred trucks coming into DC. We set ourselves up on an overpass and we got our signs out, the ones that said Unite the Working Class and Medicare For All now. And we wanted to kind of test the waters on what the crossover might be, because that's a really deeply conservative area. And if I'm not mistaken, that People's Convoy is a conservative movement. But I think that it's important because in order to have any kind of revolution or truth revolution, not a bloody fighting revolution, but like I said, a truth revolution, we're going to need to unite the right and the left on at least one very important issue, and I think healthcare is that issue. Everybody needs healthcare. Everybody has family that are hurting because of our healthcare system, or have friends that are in crisis because of our healthcare system. Are going broke because of our healthcare system. So I think it's important that we at least try to unite the right and the left on this one issue, because I think that's what it's going to take to bring it home. But so anyway, we got our signs out there on the overpass. Great location. We're editing the videos now, and we just got a dynamite response from all the truckers, just honking their asses off. They want healthcare too. We are not in a bubble in any kind of way as progressives, and we're not in a bubble any kind of way as Americans. This is something that's important to everybody, I think. And I talked to a number of people today. One gentleman who saw our signs as we were kind of shutting things down today, he says to me, yeah, unite the working class. I had them stacked on top of each other. He wasn't able to see the Medicare For All sign. And I said, yeah, right on, man. And we need some health care, don't we? He's like, oh, man, I could retire if I could get health care. There's people out there that can't retire. He was of retirement age. And there's people out there that can't retire because they can't, because they don't have any health care. And we need to decouple health care from employment. It's just absurd. So anyway, we got a lot of positive reinforcement on what we're doing out here. And like you said, we're making connections in the lefty crowd. So I'm excited. And I'd really also like to beg of your audience that we need help out here. We need organizing help. If you live on the East Coast, if you're within reach of DC and you want to help organize, definitely get a hold of me. We need to talk because the time is now. We're approaching a point where something must be done. We're the last modern industrialized country on earth to not have socialized medicine, and boy does it show. So many people are hurting. The time is really now. While we're in the midst of this pandemic still, I'm really sticking by my theory that if we can't get healthcare during a pandemic, they're never going to give it to us. So it's going to be up to us to organize in the streets to make it happen. Just like any other successful movement, civil rights, women's rights, gay rights, it all happened. It was all catalyzed in the streets. That's the reason that those movements got the traction they did, is because people came together in the streets and fought, and sometimes went to jail and sometimes died. to say that, in America, you know, things need to be fair. So
Yeah.
the time's now.
Yeah, and just for the audience there, I put Eric's Twitter handle up on the screen at Vest Actions. Please do reach out to him if you're in the DC area or if you're on the East Coast, if you're willing to travel to help out. I also encourage my audience, if you know people in the DC area that are interested in activism and organizing, want healthcare, please reach out. You guys spread the news. We want to help Eric out as much as we possibly can. I wanted to emphasize the point you made about how healthcare is something that can unite people across political lines. Can you share with the audience? I know we talked about this last time you were on, but you stopped in some conservative cities. I mean, Salt Lake City and St. Louis, and you stopped in some conservative places, Idaho, and you got a pretty strong response, if I'm not mistaken. Can you talk about how conservative areas responded to your plea for Medicare for All?
Yeah, absolutely. Boise, Idaho, Salt Lake City, Kansas City, other places that we got a really, really strong response, just as strong as in mainly progressive areas, like Seattle. So everybody's for this. We have America behind us on this issue. We just need to get everybody all together at once, at the same time, on the same day, or same week, or same month, or however long it takes, so we can overcome this. I think we can do it. I really do.
And I was hoping you could also speak to what we often work on at Real Progressives, or often sort of highlight and emphasize at Real Progressives, which is the MMT stuff, macroeconomic understanding. Can you talk about why it's so important for us to educate people on that issue as it pertains to healthcare, to sort of push back against the how you're going to pay for it, my taxes are going to go up nonsense?
Absolutely. They have us so propagandized that they have us asking the wrong questions. They have us, every time good legislation is run up the ladder, that's the bulwark that it runs into, is how you're going to pay for it. So we have to be able to answer that question perfectly and succinctly, so it makes sense. Because at this point, people are just like, well, yeah, I guess the government's constrained, and where are we going to find the money? Yeah, so I guess we can't do that now, and sure is expensive, because we think of things as if they're on a household budget, like we're on a household budget. Cities, municipalities, states, people, we're all on a household style budget. That's not the position the federal government's in. They are not constrained. And what we call the national debt is really just the national tally. It's not a debt. You shouldn't call it a debt, even though they do, because no one ever has to pay it back. Right? So if no one ever has to pay it back, how is that a debt? We need people to understand that the government, when it spends, that's their red ink, but that's not our red ink. That's their red ink. What it is for us is our black ink. They're spending on us, hopefully. I mean, that's the only way money makes it into the economy is new spending. And so that's all 100% new money. And it's not recycled, it's not reused, it's not my hard-earned tax dollars, like I used to say. I mean, no shade on anybody that still says that, because just a few years ago, that was like my credo. I don't want my tax dollars to pay for that, blah, 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 And I was economically illiterate, and that's okay, because we've been propagandized from birth to death, and we've been listening to the left politicians and the right politicians saying, how are you going to pay for it? And we're going to have to borrow money from China. And, we're going to burden our grandchildren because we're running up the debt so high. Well, that doesn't get paid back. The national debt is simply every dollar that's ever been spent into the economy since America began, less tax dollars. Okay. It's a tally. It's not a debt. And we gotta stop worrying about it.
I like to call it the money supply. It's the money supply. That's the best way to put it. You and I would not have any money in our wallet or our bank account if it weren't for the national debt. So
public money. It's public money.
That clock counter thing that they have in New York, that should say, money supply tally instead. To drive home your point about debt, I'm sure a number of the audience members have seen that the meme that goes around that says the world is X trillions in debt, and then the question is, to who? Who do we owe the Martians this debt? Like who? It's not the right language to use when discussing federal finance.
Luckily, we do have one person in Congress that has come forward publicly. The chairman, the House chairman, John Yarmouth. I even have thank you signs here up on my ceiling here that we break out. And how often does a politician do anything right? It's so rare, but when they do something right, I think we got to be there to acknowledge that and to give them the kudos to encourage good behavior, right? And he came out on C-SPAN in an interview and explained, I mean, he said the words modern monetary theory. He held up Stephanie Kelton's book and he said, America really needs to get educated on economics here. And he laid it all out for us. I mean, he knows, and I think a lot of other people know in Congress too, but they're just afraid to talk about it, maybe because they don't know enough to feel comfortable, or maybe because there's pressures that we don't know about that restrict them from doing so, from giving away company secrets. I'm afraid, John Yarmouth announced his retirement about two or 3 weeks, I think, after that interview on C-SPAN. And I just hope that they're not walking him out. But I could see how that could happen. I'm probably just imagining that, but it sure is concerning. And so my question now is, who in Congress, which Congressperson is going to take the baton? Who's going to speak the truth about MMT for all to hear, just like John Yarmouth did, and who's going to lead that initiative? So I'd really, really love to pick John Yarmouth's brain. His scheduler, I have been talking to her, and she said that she's going to try and get me a telephone interview with him to talk about this. I guess they're not doing in-person interviews at this point because of COVID and stuff, but yeah, it looks like she had contacted me after a long dry spell where I hadn't heard from her, and so it looks like we're going to be able to talk to him and pick his brain and find out, which Democrat is the closest to John on this issue. Is it Ro Khanna? Is it AOC? I mean, we've all heard the story about and seen the pictures of AOC at the dinner table, and on one side is Stephanie Kelton, on the other side is Pavlina Cherneva. She's got to know, but she doesn't talk about it. Why? That's another part of my mission here in DC is to talk about it, is to get people to start talking about it, even if they're just saying, "Hey, look at that crazy guy out there, with the MMT signs." Yeah, what a fool! I don't care, as long as it's on their lips and they're moving their mouth about it. MMT. I mean, it's the truth, and why they don't want to come forward with it, it just baffles me. But anyway, that's what we need to do.
I like to think of it like the Gandhi quote is like a pipeline, right? First they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they condemn you or criticize you or fight you, and then you won. So if you're the crazy guy out on the corner that's making them laugh at us instead of ignoring us, I am 100% on board. That is a progression down the pipeline, right? And just to comment quickly on AOC, I do know that she does understand this stuff. I know that because her initial economic team had MMT economists on it. So why she won't talk about it or name it, I think, is a serious question and something that we need to work on.
Yeah, and I believe that Savage Joy has also interviewed her about MMT. So, but still, she's not talking about it, and we need an advocate, or we need a representative. I mean, to start talking about this stuff. It's so important, and until we clear people's minds and clear the propaganda, unlearn what we thought we knew about much hard-earned tax dollars, then we can't make room for the knowledge that is MMT. I've explained MMT to my own 12-year-old before. And he's like, "Oh, okay, yeah, I get it. That makes perfect sense. No problem." Because he doesn't have any propaganda to clear, right? He doesn't listen to any people lying to him and absorb that. And so his mind is fresh, and he understands the principles that he understands the difference between a currency issuer and a currency user. He understands that there's only one currency issuer. If anyone tries to be a currency issuer, they're going to jail for counterfeiting, right? Yeah. So there's only one monopoly currency issuer, and that's the federal government, and everybody else is a currency user. We're all on a household budget. They're not. It's really simple for a young mind It seems that the older we get, especially, I'm not a boomer. I'm a boomer. Missed being a boomer by about 1 year, so you could call me a boomer probably, and it'd be pretty accurate. But the older that we get, the more these lies are reinforced in our minds, and they're harder to shed because I got to admit, after about chapter 4 in Stephanie Kelton's book, I had to phone a friend. I was in trouble. I was like, help me with this. I don't, you know what I mean? It really, really challenged me. And young people don't have that problem so much.
No, those paradigms haven't been instilled in them yet. Like the false framework of tax to spend has not been instilled yet, right?
Yeah. And even young people have heard of the power of the purse, and it all makes a lot more sense to them than it does to us, even though we've all understand, Article 1, Section 8, power of the purse. It's just easier for them and so hard for some older folks like me. So
yeah, well, I really just want to drive home, Eric, what you're saying in the sense that I think we're not trying to shame anybody who doesn't understand this stuff. The narratives have been manufactured. This is very intentional that people do not understand.
Yeah.
So we're trying to educate, right?
Yeah. So we got to uncover all the company secrets, and so everybody's informed. And once they're informed about MMT, like you and I, when we learned about it, they'll be fucking outraged. I mean, we all knew that they're lying to us, but we didn't all know exactly how bad that they've been lying to us. And it's really bad. And when you come to understand that, when you have that paradigm shift in perspective, and you're looking through that MMT truth lens, and you can see how the system actually works, and that you can see that we've been asking the wrong set of questions. How are we going to pay for it? And we're left with that. And that's not the questions we should be asking. The questions we should be asking are, why do they seemingly want to kill us and starve us out? I mean, not by what they say, but how they vote. Judging by just looking at how they vote, it looks like they want to starve us out. I mean, I'm sorry, but that's just the plain and simple truth. Otherwise they'd be helping us, right? They have the power to help us right now. The money's right there, and they won't do it. So why won't they do it? Well, they need to keep that wealth gap nice and wide. They need to, rich people, they judge themselves by how much better they're doing than the next guy down, right?
Yes, and that's all. We need to be desperate enough for them to sort of exploit us, right? If we're not desperate enough to be exploited, their business model falls apart. And if I could just compound what you're saying with a couple of Stephanie Kelton quotes, one of my very favorites is, she says, "When the MMT coin drops, you realize the suffering is gratuitous." And the other thing she said that the money should be, I'm paraphrasing on this one, but something like, the money should be the least interesting portion of the policy conversation. There's nothing really there to talk about. The policy is what needs to be talked about, right?
Yeah, it's never about the paper. It's about the real resources that it's going to require to get, whatever we want to get through. So I think once people realize this, they'll really be outraged. And once the collective is angry enough, because we're the richest country in the history of ever, and we can't even take care of our people. And I think once people realize this, they'll expect more. They'll know that we deserve it, but they'll start expecting it once they know that it's there. So I think that's the key, is getting everybody to the point where we insist. And we're just not going to take no for an answer, because now we know. Right?
Yes. And once that outrage is there, people will stop taking no for an answer. So, Eric, can you update us a little bit on, you have met some awesome fucking people over there. You've been networking with some progressives that I'm sure a lot of the audiences will recognize. Can you talk a little bit about some of the opportunities you've had to meet some people that are allies there in DC?
Yeah, and honestly, it was the craziest thing that happened. We met a couple of old timers, people that live, in shelters locally here, that were longtime activists down in front of the White House, and we'd gotten to talking, and we really, kind of connected. and one of these guys, he says, "Hey man, you should come to our meeting tonight because it's at 6:30, and we get together and talk about politics, man, and you got to come." And they've been doing this for a long time, and they also told me that they've been protesting. They've been activists ever since Vietnam, and so and they've had this little hut in front of the White House, a little activist hut, since 1981.
Oh my God.
I mean, someone from their group has been in this little hut, manning it, since 1981, 24/7, 365. Just an incredible effort. It's called the Peace Vigil. But anyway, so they invited me to their little meeting, and I was like, yeah, that sounds cool. So me and Riley went. We weren't, I don't know what we were expecting, but we were driving over there. I wrote down the name of the place, and Riley, he says to me, "Hey man, this is a 5-star hotel that they're telling us to go to. Are you sure that this is the right place?" And I'm like, "Well, yeah, I wrote it on my hand right here. I mean," it's like, "Okay, well, because we weren't expecting that, because these guys, they live at the shelter, right? And we just thought it was just a few guys that get together to bitch about politics, which I thought that I'd fit in perfectly." So anyway, we get there, and sitting in front of me is Marianne Williamson. The entire Redacted Tonight cast is up there doing comedy one by one. There's live music. Katie Halpert is live streaming the thing. John Carrico, the whistleblower, I'm sure he's on Political Misfits now and does a fantastic job. He was there, and Riley kind of nudged me. We're sitting next to each other, side by side, sort of in the back of the room, and he kind of nudged me. He's like, "What the fuck is happening here?" we couldn't believe it. We couldn't believe it. It was such good luck. And so after everything was over, we shook a bunch of hands and met some folks, and just had, Riley was actually planning on heading back the following Tuesday, but he's like, no, I'm going to stay now. There's something here for us. I mean, that was just too freaky coincidental to be not meant to be. I mean, that was a serious meant to be moment. And so we're gonna ride that wave. We're kind of in the network now with some of the cool kids. But that we need as many people as possible. We don't just need cool kids. We need as many organizers as possible. We got to connect a lot of dots. We need the action to happen right here in DC. So if you're in the DC area, any of your viewers, and you want to get together and help organize, we need a march for Medicare for All. The group March for Medicare for All is planning a march, but it's going to be in Missouri, and that's not until July. I'd love to get something a lot sooner going. I'd like to get something done a lot sooner. So anybody that's watching and wants to help out, we need to do this right now while we're still under pandemic conditions. Because if we can't get Medicare for All during a fucking pandemic, they're never going to give it to us. So we have to fight now. So anybody that wants to help, definitely get a hold of me on my Twitter at Yellow Vest Actions, and we'll talk and we'll get some shit done.
Yeah, and a quick shout out there to Double K for the super chat. Really appreciate it. Want to remind everybody that realprogressives.org/donate to help us out. And I've had Eric's Patreon up on the screen there. If you want to help Eric out, we really appreciate any and all donations. Eric, can you just tell people what kind of things you have planned for your stay there, and what they would be contributing to by helping?
And it's not going to be just one. Obviously, we're not going to get it on our first try. It's got to be a consistent effort. So I'm going to be here for 4 or 5 months. And the other thing we're trying to do is we're trying to get sit-down interviews with politicians, or telephone interviews, if that's what we have to settle for, with politicians, to get them to come forward and talk about MMT, at least state their position, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent. We need to know how they feel about it, and in order to start those vital conversations. So that is a goal. We want to put together care packages for our representatives, anybody that'll see us, anybody that can hand a care package to, that's got, a copy of The Deficit Myth and a blurb on Stephanie Kelton, and then, a professional looking official looking blurb on John Yarmouth and his position on MMT. And then once we get their position publicly, that's the goal. Follow up, have a very well known news person, like yourself, follow up with those folks and tell them that we're going to follow up with them on this, and just really try to pin them down and get these conversations started. So that's pretty big on our agenda as well. Other than that, there's a lot of protesting going on down here. This is really the place to be. In front of the White House, Medea Benjamin is down there with her group today. I'm sorry I couldn't get down there. We were following the truckers. We would have gotten back sooner if I'd have known. But she's got her group down there. They're protesting an anti-war message, which is fabulous. Everybody else is, not everybody else, but there's a lot of people that are warmongering right now because of this Ukraine thing. And they're down there doing the right thing. It's so awesome with Code Pink and Medea Benjamin, and they are bringing it with the anti-war message, and so thoughtful and helpful to do that at this point. And there's a different protest going on every day. So if you're an activist, DC is the place to be. The ears that matter are here, not in states. Okay, our states are broke. Okay, you can look at the CAFR report and you can see exactly which states can't even fund their own pensions, right? And so and that's the majority, right? There might be 4 or 5 states that might be able to squeeze a state-by-state healthcare initiative out, but just barely at that, maybe. And it just failed in California. And these state-by-state initiatives are calling themselves universal healthcare, and they're calling themselves single payer, and they're calling themselves Medicare for All, and it's bullshit. Okay, states are broke; they don't have the money. Why are you, even bothering? Go to where the money is. It's kind of like, I have this analogy, Luke. Let's say you're a 16 or 17-year-old teenager, right? And you need college, and you know it, and your teeth are rotting out of your mouth, and you know it, and you need the money to do these things. And let's say your parents are just kind of like me, living paycheck to paycheck, just on budget, if that, barely on budget, barely making it. And are you going to go up to your parents, week after week, month after month, year after year, saying, "Hey, I want you guys to pay for my health care and my college," when you've got a grandma that's got more money than God in Washington, D.C., right? Who are you going to ask? Are you going to ask your broke parents week after week like an idiot? Or are you going to go to where the money is, your richer than God grandma, and ask for those and ask for that? You're going to go to the place where the money is, right? And it ain't anywhere else besides right here. This is where this is where the power is. This is where, the people that can make these decisions are. And so we need to be here where they can hear us, outside of their offices, outside of where they work, on the streets, circling these buildings, and demanding of our Congress, of our 535 lawmakers. We need to be making the demands of them, not broke ass states, which is like 40 of the 50 states are just fucking on their face.
It's not more. I mean, and I love that analogy, Eric. And the other thing about this, for those that don't realize, and Warren Mosler and others have done fantastic work on this if you're interested in diving into the weeds, but Medicare for All would be deflationary, which means you want to increase deficit spending as you implement a deflationary policy. To use your analogy, the barely skating by parents cannot afford to increase their deficits, right? So that you go to the currency issuer for this for a myriad of reasons. And I really appreciate you highlighting that, because, look at how state programs are going right now. Is your state's education program thriving? I mean, come on. When you go to local places that are budgetarily constrained as the financial source for programs, you get horrible results. The federal government has the power of the purse, and we should utilize that to the fullest degree. I really, really appreciate you highlighting that, Eric. So one other thing I wanted to ask about, you mentioned Redacted Tonight. Lee Camp has basically been wiped off of all platforms. And Lee does really fantastic work. So it's nonsense. It's absolutely, egregious. I'm hoping you can explain to the audience what's happened there.
It's exasperating. I mean, the Redacted Tonight crew is RT. It's over 100 people, I believe, and now they're not only out of work and out of a platform, but we have less truth to watch now, and I'm really I know that Lee has started a Patreon account, which is good, but I'm really hoping that we can that we can come together. And I mean, he's such a dynamite guy, and he's got such a good show. He's had that show for 8 years, and it's just a heartbreaker to see that, because of these sanctions, that to see that show go away. It want to make it. I mean, I love that show. It makes me want to fucking cry. So I'm just really mad about it, and I know a lot of other people are just pissed off about this too. And there's something that we can do about that also. I mean, there's got to be some sort of mutual aid, something that we can, where he can, some sort of platform that would work just as well, if not better. I'm a firm believer when one door closes, that a better door opens. I really believe that, and I think that if the left gets together, we can fix this. We can't do anything by ourselves. We have to have each other. That's where our power lies, is in each other. There's no such thing as bootstraps. There's no such thing as find your inner strength and go do it, buddy. We are only strong as a collective. So that's why I need folks down here. We've got a lot of messages, and there's a lot of outrage, and this is where it happens. And it's got to be about collective solutions, not libertarian hooray for me and to hell with the other guy attitude.
Hyper individualism. And just I'm sure a lot of people do recognize this, but you mentioned the bootstraps analogy. That was originally a joke, because you cannot pull yourself up by your bootstraps. I mean, imagine you're laying on the ground. How are you going to use your bootstraps to pull yourself? It was originally a mocking of the libertarian mindset, and yet somehow it has now turned into this. Oh, pull yourself up by your boots.
Well, it's got to be up to us in the streets, Luke, because it just, that's the way it is. I mean, Obama himself said, "You got to make me do it." He basically, I'm not sure what speech it was, but I remember very clearly. He said, "You have to make me do it." Right. Yeah. Which speaks right to what I was saying earlier about movements getting catalyzed in the streets. We can't rely on electoral politics anymore. Anybody that's relying on electoral politics to solve the problems that we have, I mean, that would just be an incremental solutions at best. Even if we did have success with that, that's just not going to work anymore. We have no, it's not. We have to hit the streets. And we have to find a way to do that. And we need to ask those that can help us and support us to come forward and do so. And that's the only way it's going to get fixed. Bernie's been preaching that bottom-up approach since I've been paying attention in 2015. And he's like, that's the only way things happen, is when, I mean, word for word, when millions of people come together, stand up to say enough is enough. He didn't mean online. He meant together, in person, on the streets. Politicians don't give a fuck about pressure online. They don't care about that. That doesn't pressure them. We're going to push Biden left online. That doesn't work. It's got to be.
For a decade, how's that gone?
That's right. That's right. This is where you push Biden left in DC. Okay.
Yep.
When the other day, I got a lot of satisfaction. I saw his motorcade leaving the White House, and I wish I had a shit ton of people with me. And I made a TikTok about it, and we videoed it. But I saw his motorcade leaving the White House to drop him off at, to lie to us about, the State of the Union address, and which he mentioned. He mentioned the national debt like 6 times during that presentation.
And the deficit, and oh god,
and the gratuitous Medicare for all, But I got out there with my signs, and I stepped out on the street as all of the black SUVs went rushing by with the 20 motorcycles on each end, And I hope he saw me. He might not have seen me, but I tell you what, if I had a big group of people with me, they would have fucking seen me for sure.
Yeah.
And we could have even, possibly gotten in the way, right? They closed the street down, but we were already parked on the street. It's right next to the White House. If we're prepared for something like that, we can apply that kind of pressure in person. That's what it's going to take.
Yeah.
You can fuck around all day online and think you're pressuring Joe Biden, but it ain't
You're not.
working, and he don't give
Yeah.
a fuck. Okay,
Yeah.
they don't care about us.
Yeah.
They
They
don't
just
they
flat
don't
out
care.
don't. That's an apt point to close on here. I want
Well,
to really
let me
encourage.
let me make one more point, Luke, and
Please.
that is that voting and electoral politics, voting is where our responsibility begins. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
it's not where it ends. We're not one and done with voting. Hey, I voted, I did my part. No, you didn't. No, you
Yeah.
didn't. You did that's just where your responsibility starts. You know, we need to fill the streets. We can get
Absolutely.
anything we want. We can get everything we want if we realize our power, our collective power together, locking elbows and showing them that we're fucking here and we're not going away until we get what we want. And we will get what we want, but we have to
Yes.
do that.
Yeah. 100% agree, Eric. You are a fucking inspiration. I am so happy to be able to bring your journey here and your protests and things to the audience. And I just want to once again reiterate, you guys, Eric's Patreon there is at the bottom of the page. Perhaps even more importantly, if you know anybody in DC that is interested in getting involved with Eric, please reach out to him on Twitter at Vest Actions and join him in his yellow vest protest there. We really could use as many bodies as possible, and if you're able to contribute to Eric, please do so. We're going to try to bring you guys an update here every week on what Eric's been up to and try to support, gain some momentum and things like that in DC. Eric, thank you again for taking the time. We really appreciate it.